My newlywed wife cheats on me in my own house. What should I do? I just want to apologize for the formatting and any problems below, since I'm doing this on my phone. I suppose I should begin by providing some background for the scenario. First and foremost, I am a 38-year-old male, and she is a 31-year-old female. We met because my sister and her best friend were best friends. We've been together for roughly 12-13 years on and off. We moved in with approximately 7 or 8 years ago and are getting married in October 2021, so we've just been married for 4 months. We have 2 lovely girls, 2.5 and 1.5. We intended to marry before the daughters arrived, but the first was a surprise. She stopped using birth control without informing me. I was furious at first, but I couldn't picture my life without them today. They are my priority, and I would do everything for them. I'm not an angel and don't pretend to be. I've made blunders in the past. I'm not here to portray myself as a saint and her as the devil. That being stated, I'll begin with my flaws. I've cheated before. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. The first 2 occurred early in the relationship, without justification, and the most recent occurred a year or 2 after moving in together. When we first moved in together, I was highly inspired to do things around the home and concentrate on repairing things. As time passed, I became complacent and began to spend all of my time watching YouTube or playing video games. As a result, I got sluggish. There are a few other minor flaws I have, but none of them should be relevant in this case, so we'll go on. My wife, on the other hand, has always prioritized the family. She is a beautiful lady, and I genuinely believe she cares for me and the kids. There are a few things that I believe have gotten out of hand over time. My main concern is that she has developed a taste for wine. It began with a glass or 2 maybe twice a week and has progressed to 4 to 6 per night every night. I've told her several times that I believe this is an issue, particularly because alcoholism runs in her family. She constantly dismisses it, claiming it's her method of relaxing at the end of the day. This has resulted in her gaining a lot of weight. I'm not as taken with her as I once was. She recently approached me and asked if we could start going to the gym together so she wouldn't feel the need to drink and could start getting healthy again. I agreed, but nothing has transpired in the 2 weeks since we spoke. Her drive is far lower than mine, and I have several quirks. She, on the other hand, is, well, let's just say she liked to do things the regular way. To her credit, she has matured a lot in that area, has broadened a little bit, and has opened up to me about that part of herself, and she tries very hard to satisfy me in that regard. Now that I think about it, I definitely cheated in the past for that reason alone. There are a few more things I could say, but that should enough for this circumstance. Finally, let's get to the point of why you all began reading this article in the first place. My tale begins about a month ago, when my neighbor friended my wife on Facebook. My wife quickly informs me that he has done so and asks whether she should accept. I assured her it was okay, since he was probably only looking for people in the area. She inquired whether I had gotten on, and I told her I didn't know since I don't regularly use Facebook anymore. I'll probably come on once a month. So she accepts his friend request, and he immediately begins messaging her through the chat app. He's just making small conversation about the 2 of us going up some bay in sports and everything, she says. I assure her it's okay and begin playing a video game. About 5 minutes later, she approaches me and informs me that he has just posed an odd question. Is your spouse checking his phone? You don't have anything to hide. She said no, since I didn't check her phone. Following that, he immediately begins flirting and with her. She claims she told me this, but I don't remember hearing it. After a few days, it is now Friday night/Saturday AM. I'm an early riser while she's a night owl. This is critical for the next section. I wake up about 4:20 AM, and she looks to be asleep, as shown by a large pile of covers on her side of the bed. I sneak out of the bedroom and discover she hasn't turned out almost every light in the house. I then turned off all the lights and went to the garage to smoke. When I arrive, the lights are also turned on. I settle down, and about 2 minutes into my smoke, I hear someone in the laundry room behind me. I enter the door to see my wife removing her blouse and tossing it in the washing machine. My stomach lowers as I realize something is wrong. I begin by asking her why she is awake and how long she has been awake. She lies, claiming she couldn't sleep and has been up for approximately 20 minutes. I inquire as to her whereabouts, and she replies that she was smoking outdoors. Keep in mind that it's winter and the temp was probably around 15 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. When I inquired why, She said that it was too smoky in the garage, so she walked outdoors. It didn't even smell like a cigarette had been smoked in there for a few hours. When I informed her I hadn't seen her outside, she typically sits directly outside the sliding glass door when she smokes. She said she was in the alcove because of the wind. I tell her that something is wrong and that none of this makes sense. She swears up and down that she's telling the truth, then invites me to sleep with her. I didn't want to do it since I sensed something was wrong, but I did it anyway because our life has all but vanished. At this stage, it happens once per month or two. The deed occurs and I go play some video games while my kid goes to bed. After a few days, everything has gone wrong. You know how you get that nagging sense that something isn't right, and no matter what you try to shake it, it just won't go away. At this point, that's me, so I bring it up again and again, pointing out the holes in her narrative. Finally, she reveals that her neighbor contacted her at 2 a.m. as she was ready to fall asleep, wondering if she had any smokes since he had just ran out. She tells me that in her mind, she was going to go over there and clear things up, telling him that she is happily married and that nothing would happen between them. She comes in via the back door to avoid being captured by our doorbell camera. They shoot for a few hours before starting to make out. When he took his thing out, she stated she pushed him off and returned home. I tell her that all of this has to stop and that if I ever find her over there again, we're done. We ended up talking about it for the following 2 or 3 days since she eventually admitted it on a Tuesday. I feel like we can go on, and then the next day she sends me a nude, which catches me off guard since I haven't received one from her in like 8 years. I somehow let on that this seems strange, and she tells me that she was only trying to be polite to me. I later find out that this was taken for the neighbor and sent to me afterwards in case I had found it and asked why she took it. So I'm a bit nervous about that weekend since I'm going to a concert with my closest buddy that isn't really a concert. I'll go into more detail later. So this was supposed to be a day and night event since it was in Washington, D.C., something I had no idea about when I committed to attend. Also, I agreed since it was his birthday gift from me and none of his other friends wanted to take him. For background, I reside approximately 3.5 hours from Washington, D.C. anyway. When I get to his place, I discover that we are heading to a club to watch DJ rather than a concert. This isn't my scene, and I don't want to go. I do it because it's my best buddy, and he needs my assistance. I spent the whole way there and half the night telling my wife how much I love her, how we would get through this, and how much I just want to be in her arms right now. She's essentially saying the same thing to me, but she's asking me to have fun since something like this won't happen again for a long time. She informs me her phone is about to die and asks that I text her when we get back to the hotel. The concert is coming to a conclusion, and I have a strong sense that I ought to leave right now and go home. I inform my friend that I'm going back to the hotel to pack all of our belongings before we go. He's concerned since I haven't slept since 8 a.m. the day before. It's already 3:30 a.m., and I'm making my way back to the hotel. I gather my belongings, check out, and he walks to his vehicle. We start driving home in the snow at about 4:30 a.m. My wife calls to check on me. When I tell her we're on our way home, she quickly asks where I am. I tell her I'm not certain and that I'll be home in a little more than 2 hours. She is concerned about my lack of sleep and driving all the way home. I assure her we'll be all right and hang up the phone since the road is becoming poor and the vehicle is beginning to skid. I leave my friend off at his residence and return home. At this point, I feel like Superman, arriving home without sleeping, cleaning the house, and getting the children when they wake up so she can sleep in. My intention was to take a sleep at the same time they did. When I arrive home, she is still sleeping, so I take the monitor and go outside for a cigarette when I see my eldest is waking up. I take her and get her out of bed so she doesn't wake anybody else. She wants my phone, but I need it to listen to music and remain awake. I tell her I'll go get her mommy. When I pick up the phone and return to the living room, I discover a text from the neighbor stating something to the effect of, "Next time, tell him what gets her off so he can do it and eat it all up." I instantly get ill and offer my phone to my daughter, who puts it in my pocket. I walk about my home for the next 4.5 hours, waiting for her to wake up. She doesn't, so I step in and startle her. She eventually exits the room and passes straight by me on her way to the garage. When I ask her where she's going, she claims she's going to find her phone. I tell her not to be concerned since I have it. She can have it back once we chat about it. She has the option of speaking now or after she has finished her smoke. She walks outside to smoke and I sit at the table, pull out my phone, start filming a video, and set it on the table. She goes up, sits down, and inquires about my phone, to which I respond that she need not worry. I tell her that this is her final opportunity to tell me the truth. In my thoughts, I believe they slept together that first night, and she simply didn't want to tell me. And the next words she says devastate me. She claims that her neighbor came over last night, and they slept in the basement together. I snapped and ordered her to go. She resisted, and I warned her that if she didn't leave in the next 15 minutes, I'd contact her mother and tell her we were divorcing. I phoned her since she didn't leave. We put the children to bed, and I packed my belongings for a week's trip and departed. I returned to my best friend's home with every intention of contacting a lawyer and initiating divorce procedures. While driving, I was thinking about my girls and phoned my wife to tell her till I get to where I'm going to change my mind. She tried and tried, but nothing she said changed anything until I informed her I was there, and then she didn't. When she stated she was going to stop drinking, a notion occurred to me. Yes, I told her, this is what will happen. I have a magical notepad, and anything I write on it comes true. I tell you to quit drinking, and you do, and I tell you to get an STD test for everything, and you do. Anything I write down, you do without question. She agrees, and I tell her I'll return home whenever I want. I then walk inside and tell my closest buddy everything. I remain till 6 or 7 p.m. and then go home. I arrive just as she is preparing the girls for bed. We put them to bed and begin conversing. I tell her she has till Friday to sign us up for marital therapy. I call in sick to work on Monday and we spend the day chatting. I realize I'm setting her up for failure, so I tell her she's an adult and understands how I feel about drinking, but she can make her own choices. I inform her that marital therapy is required, as is an STD test, and that she must refrain from ever speaking to her neighbor. She cannot even say hello, and if he is outside and she must go inside. I don't want her even glancing at him. I informed her that he no longer existed, and that she should treat him as such. I feel like we're getting back on track to moving on from this. She goes out to get wine the next day. She drank 2 glasses the first night and was right back in the flow of things the next. When I brought it up to her, she shrugged it off once again. So being spiteful, I get home on Friday and start dropping shots. I'm not a drinker and don't love being drunk, and within 2 hours she realizes I'm doing it to be nasty and calls me out on it. I tell her that this is the new me and she should get used to it. I'm wrapped around the toilet at the end of the night, dry heaving. She tucks me into bed, and the following day I apologize for being cruel. Nothing had changed for her, and she had been in the garage for 4 hours, smoking a pack of cigarettes and drinking 4+ glasses of wine. It's now Wednesday, and our first marital therapy appointment is planned for Friday at 5:30 p.m., which is precisely when I get off work. Because it's remote, I'll probably wait in the parking lot while we do it, and then drive an hour home. So that gets you up to the present. Thank you to everyone who has made it this far. Thank you to everyone who provided useful advice. Please find another place to troll for all the trolls. I'm a real person with genuine feelings and real difficulties, seeking assistance from other real individuals about my circumstance.